Recording in progress.
And those are the magic words we're waiting for from Zoom. Recording in progress for everybody on the call. Anyway, hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to The Broken Brain. Very excited to bring you some details today about the focus that you've been hearing me plug and mention on the episodes for the month of October and November. We are focused on our charity of note. Our nonprofit of focus is the Because organization. We've talked about quite a bit before, and we're talking about their virtual fundraising event that I just keep mentioning, and we're going to talk more about it in depth today. And so I'm joined again by returning champions to the podcast, Marcia Holt and Bill Cottringer, who are here to talk about the Because organization and the work that you guys are doing. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, our pleasure.
So, how are you all doing out there? I'm gonna forget for sure. I know, Marcia, you're in Philadelphia or right next to Philadelphia, right? If I remember right.
Yes, I'm in Delaware County. Yes.
Okay. And then, Bill, are you over there too, or are you somewhere else?
Oh, I'm in Seattle.
Okay, I thought you were somewhere else. I was trying to remember. But so yeah, how are the respective areas that you're in doing at this change of seasons?
We're concerned about the East Wing.
Yes, aren't we all? Oh, well, as people have listened before, one of the things that I really love about your organization is that it fills a need and a niche that is often not only underrepresented, but I think people don't even talk about it. I think sometimes people don't like to talk about it because it's difficult. I think when people engage with issues that are difficult to engage with, they really like to say, can we focus on an area that I can just not feel as bad or worried about because there isn't anything being done or there's not enough being done. And you guys specialize in helping with people who've come through human trafficking after they have already emerged from that situation and helping them with those things. And that's my quick summary way to say it. But yeah, tell everybody a little bit about the Because organization in case they haven't heard us talk about it before.
Sure. So Because organization is a survivor-focused nonprofit where we help survivors of human trafficking reclaim their lives by referring them to services and helping them plan and access different resources for their recovery journey.
And you started the organization, Marcia.
Yes. Right. I started it in 2021. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I was looking there. I knew your name, but I was looking for another way to say started. Founded is the word. There we go.
Founded, yes.
and you had founded it because you saw a lack of need in this area?
Yes, I saw a gap
a lack of services in this area is what I meant. Yeah,
a lack of services in the area after the crisis response. Mm-hmm. So long-term care. Right. So there's only about 8% of anti-human trafficking programs that do long-term care beyond 6 months, which we think is a huge need because to recover from this type of trauma, it can take 5, 7, maybe even 10 years if there's re-traumatization that happens.
Sure.
So we thought that this was important to help the survivors regain their independence and reclaim their lives after this horrible experience.
It's a very, I think people get lost in the idea and unfortunately sometimes even the fantasy of rescue. Rescue, that's exciting. Right. We get in there and rescue someone. And it's like, that's great. Not to get away from the idea that people need to exit the situation. But then what I feel like we've seen again and again where some organizations do so little aftercare that they essentially people just return to the situation almost as soon as those people leave, right?
Exactly. So after crisis response is absolutely needed and escaping their trafficking situation, of course, but then what now? Mm-hmm. After they're in the emergency shelter for whatever short period of time that they're able to be there, where do they go? How do they find the services they need? Housing, food, career development to help them get to the next step in their goals. And that's important.
And Bill, did I cut you off there? Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm in my listening mode.
Yes.
Something I learned from Matthew McConaughey to be a giving listener rather than a taking transactionist.
That's a cool concept. That's a whole thing in and of itself. I like that. What did you say? Taking transactionist?
Yeah, very, very relevant to fundraising. You don't want to approach fundraising as a transaction because the other person, the other party involved is going to see right through that. You want to give them something.
And I think anytime that there's anyone who's doing something that is a service-oriented, charity-oriented, nonprofit, obviously fundraising becomes a big part of that, and how you approach that. Now, having been, how long's the Because organization been around now? It's been, you said 2000 and...
2021 is when we were founded. Yeah. We've been in operation for going on our third year, though.
Right.
Fully operational.
Yeah, so it's been sort of in that stage where you're kind of in you're it's a cool stage because you're able to invent what you're doing and do all the things that you need. At the same time, you guys now have some traditions. You've been around long enough that you've got some things that you've learned and that you use and practice, right, for this kind of thing. When you run into that part, when you started it up and hit the fundraising piece, what's that been like?
So that has been interesting and a learning curve for us as well. But we try to approach it as it's not just us taking from someone. Mm-hmm. We try to let them understand that they're part of this experience with us. They are making impact with survivors, even if they might not be working directly with them. They're donating their resources or time, even through volunteering. So we try to listen to what they understand about human trafficking and inform them. So it is a mutual give and take experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that teaching and education is always best linked with that, right? When there's fundraising, having some education around that. And I like how you say that gives people an opportunity because most of us out there, we're not spending our day-to-day working with survivors or working with anybody. You're like, unless somebody directly works at a similar type of nonprofit, right? We're not able to do that. But then you mentioned the big things we can do, which is there's volunteering. And then I believe the most important way to help any organization, which is funding, which is actually when we're able to do so, giving whatever amount we can monetarily. And then, of course, I always say the third one is also effective. So I say, contributing, then volunteering are very, very close to each other. And then the third one is anybody out there is in a position where you absolutely can't do either of the first two. It doesn't cost anything to forward a link or a page to your social media or to post it on your wall or your
That's
Facebook.
An excellent point. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
And often we're already scrolling, doing something anyway, at least 5 or 10 minutes a day on our phones, I think is the average amount of time that we spend. But no, we're on there all the time, posting and sharing and liking and fighting with people online. So yeah, take a little time to post something as well when we can. Absolutely. Making people part of it is that's a great philosophy of how you're approaching that. Do you find that a lot of people let's say in that field of where you're educating and teaching people about this kind of advocacy and the things, what sort of things do you find people are most in need of or responsive to? What kind of things do they need to learn and understand?
I think the first thing is making sure everyone understands what exactly is human trafficking. So they might have an idea from a movie or some episode of SVU or something,
right?
But understanding the reality of it and what's the actual definition of it. And then what it's like for the survivor after the trafficking experience. Sometimes people are so focused with the actual trafficking situation and their escape that they go, oh, okay, it's a happy story afterwards. But sometimes it's a harder journey to get to that goal point of living their lives again.
Mm-hmm. And I might add to this, Dwight, that you can't go into this situation in educating others with with preconceived causes and cures, because each new case is new and different with its own nuances that you have to understand. And you can't just apply some kind of cookie cutter prescription to undo the trauma.
Yeah, this is where I see that public understanding sometimes does fall down of a lot of issues. You know, I work in the field of addiction quite a bit, and people have a certain perspective of who it is that struggles with addiction.
Right.
And even just understanding that it isn't whoever pops in their head. That's not, it's across the board. It's everybody. And I think it's exactly what you said. I know that when you see something that is portrayed either for entertainment purposes, like you said, whether it's SVU, or, you know, when we see things that are perpetrated for, you know, swindly con artist type of reasons, where a lot of people try to raise panic to get money, or then you also have just well-intentioned people who believe certain things, and that's what they worry about, and maybe don't know about the things that they really do. I mean, I'll throw out an example. I know that in the area where I live, a lot of times, in some of the more suburban areas, you'd have people that would get this like really worried kind of thing of like, oh, don't turn around at the grocery store. Someone's going to just take your kid. And it's not that that's good. I don't mean to not be, you should be aware of where your kid's at, of course. By the way, just in case anyone thinks I'm not pro ignore your kid and let them get taken. I don't mean that. However, as far as that type of abduction in the broad daylight in a suburban middle class neighborhood, to have someone just snatched in the middle of a grocery store, and I think it's not likely, right? It's certainly not the most likely, and it's certainly not where we should put all of our time, attention, and everything into that. And I think it does. Sometimes those misconceptions seem like, what's the harm? At least I'll just keep an extra eye on my kid. But I think they do a couple of things we have to be careful of. If we don't understand the real nature of the problem, we sometimes think that just by watching our kid or getting after someone who doesn't, or making a post about it, we think we've already done something significant to impact the problem. And on the other side, there's the uglier societal side of that, to where it's like, are we only worried about, frankly, mostly white middle-class kids being taken from a suburban neighborhood, and we're discounting all of the things that, and maybe the populations that are most at risk, in favor of maybe something that is largely a paranoia? Am I saying that in an okay way that you're all comfortable with?
Right. Marginalized populations are more so at risk because of the systems in place and some belief systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think understanding that, and you can see where even in some cases, I know, you know, from meeting and talking and learning about some of the things with survivors, sometimes you are trying to help people like rebuild or reclaim their lives. But a lot of times you're also helping them build or claim, let's say, for the first time living in a system in a healthy way, right?
That's like rehabilitation with criminals. It's really habilitation.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes, and unfortunately, even this year, a lot of our clients are younger, 18, going into adulthood, and sometimes it's building for the first time. Their trafficking experience was when they were an adolescent. Mm-hmm. So they're learning how to adapt to this world and enter into adulthood with a program like us, or organization like us. And sometimes their worldview, because of their trafficking experience, can be a little bit skewed. They could be a little more cautious, sometimes scared to trust even organizations that say they're victim service providers. And that's when having trauma-informed training and having a survivor-centered approach and philosophy comes into play with our organization, to make sure that there's trust both ways and that we are moving at the pace of the survivor to help them build or rebuild their lives.
Yeah. That's also then to your point, Bill, about individualization. And that's something that I honestly, that's one of the main things that I look for in any kind of treatment approach, any kind of a program that's made for people. Is the program there to meet the needs of the people, rather than the people should fit into our program? And so that individualization is huge.
And speaking of needs, there's something I'd like to say about building awareness with people who want to learn more about human trafficking and the survivors getting well again. Mm-hmm. It's all about mindfulness, because solid research says we spend about 75% of our waking time thinking about everything but what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And so, by paying more attention to our immediate environment and not our memories of past or thinking about expectations in the future, we're tuned into what's happening and can be more aware of how to prevent these sorts of things, or how to, if you're a survivor, how to get well again.
And I think that when you're in, you spend enough time also right in survivor crisis mode too, there's a whole different, because then we're focused on stuff, right, that isn't mindful and focused. We're focused on just getting by. And I think particularly when it's a lot of the young developmental period of our life, we're learning how to live life, and we're learning to live life in a state of crisis and panic if we're in a state of abuse and all those things that are going on.
Very valid point.
Yeah. And Marcia, I was thinking about this as you were talking about that of not only knowing what the system is, an 18-year-old doesn't know anyway, right? And then definitely if they have been gone through trafficking and abuse of that kind, it is both a byproduct of trauma, but also I think a tactic of those that engage in trafficking to breed distrust. To say, like, it's hard for me to trust if I've been traumatized anyway, but it's a tactic to say if you don't trust people out there, you're not going to run away, or not as likely, right? If you think that those in authority, systems, programs, cops are either not going to help you or even worse, going to hurt you, then you're not going to turn to them for help. And I would say that's even compounded by the fact that not everybody who is victimizing and trafficking is this what we think of there either. So if there are people who are either in a position of authority or pretend to be or whatever who abuse, that even compounds it even worse,
Exactly. Yeah. That is definitely a technique to pull survivors back into their re-victimization, into trafficking as well, by saying, I'm the only person you know, so choose the monster you know, basically, which is extremely harmful when there are well-meaning organizations, law enforcement, that are willing to help. And you just have to move at the survivor's pace to build that trust. And it can be a little slower than some organizations or some people would like.
And the perpetrators are experts at meeting survivors' basic needs, which are very important.
Because if I do just leave, I'm not immediately better off if I just escape from a place where my basic needs are getting met and I have no way to meet them.
Yes.
We just had a guest who was an independent filmmaker who had made a film called 52. It was, in fact, and the name comes from the idea of the young protagonist was not given a name. He was only 52 of however many orphans. It takes place in India, and it was fictional, but it's based off of a real practice, which is that there's a criminal guy who has this pickpocket gang of kids, kind of Dickensian in a way, but it's based off of reality of purchasing, going to indigent families, marginalized families, giving money to take in their child that he then trains in, and has them actually believing that, well, I'm your father. I feed you. I clothe you. I even give you money after you steal some for me. And one of the complicating factors, and the reason he'd made this movie, was to tell the story of how in real life, oftentimes along with these kind of trafficking situations, people either are engaged with or surrounded by criminal activity. And if you catch a kid stealing, it's not always the first approach of a person to think, oh, you're probably in trouble, kid, who's stealing. You're okay. That's not the first reaction when you're caught committing a crime, or you're in a house where there's drugs and the police come in or whatever. Nobody may know. And if you don't trust people, you're not even going to say, hey, while you're here, can you help me? Because all I know about you is I've been told my whole life you're bad, and then you came in and arrested everybody. And though that seems like, yeah, I guess this is a bad experience. I don't say nothing,
Dwight, can I ask you a favor? If you could send me a link to that information?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
I have a daughter that's involved in making movies about human trafficking, and she'd be very interested.
Yeah, I'll send you his info. Fascinating guy, and I know he'd be happy to connect on it too. Yeah,
Hey.
I appreciate that. Well, and I wanted to get a breakdown of some of the ways you mentioned. The trust building is a big part of this, and then there's a lot of practical things. So if let's say I'm in a position where I'm able to be involved in your virtual event, which we'll talk about in a minute, but if I'm able to just go on, by the way, anytime, everybody, to becauseorganization.org, and I'm able to make a contribution, I'm now becoming part of this. What am I part of? What's happening? What's happening on the ground?
Right. So you're part of our overall response to helping them along their journey. So they are the experts and the writers of their own journey. And what we do is say, how can we help? What are your goals, and what is the priority of those goals? So we don't say, okay, you have to do this, this, and this will work for everyone. We work with survivors. We talk to them and we say, okay, so your first goal is this: job, employment, and then housing. Or is it housing and then employment, or is it finding a mental health practitioner? So you are there helping us, being able to, with your donation or volunteer hours, find these referrals victim service providers if they're not in this area, and help us walk with them through our virtual platforms or meet up with them if they're local, and advocate for themselves. Really think about how to plan in the future, which is really hard for someone that experiences this type of complex trauma to think in the future. What are the next steps? And take that time with them so we're not rushing them. They have time to process, think about what is right for them, and not just what we're saying might be a good path for them. So you're part of the journey and allowing us to provide this type of service on the terms that are most digestible and easy for survivors to trust us and build over time.
And we're trying to follow Oprah Winfrey's great advice about how to build a legacy by trying to touch as many people as we can.
One of the things that impresses me is you guys really do utilize the modern tools that are available, technological tools and things. So you're able to provide, as you put it, kind of like face-to-face help for people in the area, but your work goes out beyond just your immediate area.
Correct. Yeah. We can use some of these cool tools, Zoom, Google Meeting, email, things like that. Even social media, if someone contacts us needing help through social media, to reach survivors and find someone in their area, a victim service provider, if they need that face-to-face time to provide those services, or if they just need someone to help them map out an action plan of where to go. Where do I even find how to register for government assistance? Where's the shelter? Where is a mental health practitioner? Do I have to pay for it? Things like that.
That action plan is huge because a lot of times even those who might give guidance don't always even know how to do it. I mean, even sitting, like, you might have someone who's like a social worker, a therapist, who's like, hey, you should go look for these services. And the person's like, I don't know what that is or where to do it. And the other person's like, I've also never applied for it. And so do we sit there and Google it together, or do we just say, you should do this? And the person says, thanks. And then they leave and they're like, I still don't know what the hell to do.
No. We don't leave them high and dry that way. We say, okay, even if we don't know how to do it.
You guys don't. That's people.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys don't do that. But it happens, It
happens all the time. But what we say is, hey, let's figure it out together. And that's another part of them saying, okay, you're not saying you know all the answers to everything. We can learn together and figure this out, especially if it's in a different state. We're like, okay, let's screen share and figure out what the process is on their website.
See, that's huge. That is a huge piece right there, is the piece of being able to have someone try to walk with you. They're not just telling you where to walk or even saying where you might want to. there's a respect for autonomy, and at the same time, a little bit of, say, take someone by the hand and say, yeah, let's go through this. Let's see, where we go from here.
Yeah, exactly. And by doing this, they learn how to do that for a different service, or if they're in need again, they know how to go about finding that information.
And our key is follow up and follow through. In fact, I once got a great job one time just by mentioning the concept of follow through with supervision, that was the key behavior, to follow through your action.
That also has to help with the trust factor, to have someone who is following through, particularly not asking me for anything, and really cares enough to say, yeah, I get it. You probably don't know how to do this. And in cases where you're crossing over, you're virtually involved, that's a great point where it's like, yeah, I also don't. I don't know how to apply for housing assistance in your state. Let's figure it out. And the process, because then you're also helping people to practice the tools of figuring it out, which is its own thing, right? Is like,
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It brings
exactly, and they feel empowered when they do that as well.
Yeah,
that hey, exactly. I did this myself, even though they might have had help, but they know how to do that, and they can help their friends that they might know as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it brings to mind there's that old saying that there's a part of this old saying that's always bugged me, where they say, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. The part of that I've always thought is those aren't mutually exclusive activities. To say like, oh, you're hungry, here's some food. And by the way, hey, you know how you can fish too. You want to do that sometime? But it seems like we're kind of really trying to do both, right? Of like, well, let's find provision of need and services. And if you aren't, if someone's really struggling with follow through, there's lots of examples of reasons why any of us, even in the best of circumstances, don't follow through on healthy things, right? And if someone doesn't follow up with me, I'm not going to follow up on a lot of things. I'm sitting over here. I have ADHD. I have to remember to, log on to this call, for example, or else we wouldn't be recording. And without tools and structures and also support people in my life who care about me enough, I don't follow through very well, and so there's lots of reasons why someone in a crisis or post-crisis state could struggle with that, I think. Yeah.
Just don't make any New Year's Eve resolutions.
No, yeah. In fact, I usually do a January episode extolling against doing New Year's resolutions and talking about goal setting. But you know what? This year, I forgot to do it. So there we go. See, there's a follow through I didn't do either. I usually talk about that. So, with all the tools and things, I'm fascinated by your approach to this walkathon, runathon event. That you can tell me the real name of it because I'm just saying it in a goofy way, I guess. But I'm really fascinated by the way that you do this on a virtual platform, that nobody's getting together in one location to be very limited as to what we can do. But tell everybody about the fundraiser.
It's a virtual walk run from any place during 2 weeks, October 26th to November 9th. People from anywhere in the United States can register and pledge a distance to walk that distance within the 2-week time period. And it's called Virtual Walk Run because survivors deserve more, which is our slogan. And by anyone being able to do it anywhere, anyway, it kind of highlights how this issue is so prolific anywhere. And it's so many different types of ways it happens. And you can support people by different means, by volunteering, donating, and spreading awareness like this. And same way by walking, running, any type of way in the 2-week time period. Phil, do you want to jump in anywhere?
This is a very user-friendly event because I plan to reach my accomplishment at the gym on the stationary bike and walking the dog combo. And I'm also rolling this into a bigger challenge for my veterans group, which is 250 miles. But we have a whole year to do that. So I'm going to roll both of them into each other and do a bunch of miles.
It's meant to put something involved with something you're probably doing anyway. As you put it, people can make a special effort to go out and walk, or you can just, hey, I'm walking anyway. I'm walking here, as they say, whether I'm taking the dog or just, whatever it is we're doing at work or whatever. Yeah. And is there a way, so how do people track that? Do they just kind of just track that and report it into the website, record it in the website, or is there a interactive piece there, how they do that?
So after you register, you can download RaceJoy and track your distance. And then that automatically uploads to our website and it says, hey, so-and-so completed their distance. You can also engage with the community and have us cheer you on and speak to other people and cheer them on. So it's a way to build community as well.
Or just be honest and report what you did.
Right.
That too. Actually, that actually, as you say that, it brings up a great point, which is the flexibility of the thing. It's like, on the one hand, if it's helpful and if you're helped by having the app, if you're helped by having this connection, right, or if you just, count it yourself and put it in, and round up, people. Come on, let's round up, not down. Right. If we're self-estimating. But whatever it is, I like the flexibility that you put there, which is, as I said before, one of the things I admire about the way you guys deliver services to survivors, and the way that you're helping out with people who are giving and volunteering is to be flexible to the needs of the person, and say, yeah, you can participate in this wherever and however you want to. And I think, personally, I feel like this is kind of the wave of the future for being able to fundraise. And this is why I love to highlight local charities here, because local charities, no matter where they are, nowadays, we can still interact with wherever we are, if that makes sense. If we find someone who's doing a thing we care about.
And the present economic climate is not necessarily conducive to heavy-handed fundraising, so we have to be flexible.
I have a lot of feelings about this, but I'm curious what you guys would say to people that are out there when they say, I whatever I would have to give is not significant enough, and so I don't think I can be involved. How would you approach that topic?
$1 is enough.
Yeah, $1 is enough. Anything's enough, really. What you're saying is, I care, I see you, I want to participate in some way, the best way I can. And that's always appreciated. And survivors can see that by, hey, they're giving what they can and they're doing what they can to reclaim and do, and help in their journey. So no matter their, denomination or that you're giving to us, or whether you're just sharing our message, you are, making a difference and you are helping us service survivors.
And one common thing that everybody needs is to be understood and validated.
I think of it kind of like, if we, think of it like a community potluck dinner. And a lot of people have had this, whether you have a tight community of friends or family or a church or a social group. Let's say the potluck dinner, everybody brings some food in. And if nobody brings in any food, let's say, or if I'm only supposed to bring the napkins and I don't bring the napkins, then we don't have napkins. Right.
Right.
And that's significant. That we notice that if we have I don't know, I used to work at a place where they had an annual chili cook-off kind of thing. And it's like, if we didn't have napkins, you notice that at a chili cook-off. You think it's all about the chili, but you need spoons and napkins and also people to eat and taste the chili. So yeah, we all come together. And I always think of it too, of like, we're, if I say to myself, all I can give is $1 and I feel silly and I don't do it. And let's say that there's 10 people who do that, then that's $10 that didn't go to help somebody. Let's say there's 100. Let's say there's 1,000 or 100,000 people who say, all I have is 50 cents or $1. And that's all, we're talking about, there's a lot of people out there who care and also don't know if they can do enough. And I'm not the only person who maybe wonders that. And so if I don't, boy, think of it. If even half of those people don't, that's a lot of money that didn't come through for victims and survivors. So,
and here's an interesting twist, that 7 out of 8 efforts, 7 results out of 8 efforts is not as good as 8 out of 100.
That's really true. Yeah, I like that.
Well, I'm not the owner of that. That comes from Matthew McConaughey.
We've got
in his book, Prayers and Poems.
What if I had him on the line? No, you know what? Somebody just told me that he narrated the audiobook for that himself, and I think just hearing Matthew McConaughey's voice for a long time would actually be pretty enjoyable. personally.
Yeah.
And, going to that kind of all of us pitching in mentality, if I am considering helping out an organization, a nonprofit organization full of volunteers and nonprofit workers and social workers and people helping those that are disenfranchised and that are survivors and coming through, there ain't one of us in that group that I just mentioned who's probably rolling in it a ton, right? None of us are living high on the hill. We're all pulling together, and it all kind of comes back around because I want people to be doing well and being able to integrate into society and being happy. I want it ethically. I want it morally. And also, hey, if we're being honest, practically. If we all live in a town or a city or a country where people are able to participate, we all benefit from that directly as well as ethically and morally and feeling like good people. So there's lots of good reasons out there to say that my contribution is enough because it's there,
Well said.
Yeah. Well, it's great things. What kinds of things can people? Well, first of all, let's make sure to mention where people go. I know your website, but I'll let you tell everybody website, social medias. Where can they find it?
So we are hosting it on Run Sign Up. So you can find the link on our website, on our social media posts. Right now, we have a lot of social media posts for our event, of course. Click the link, register for whatever you can give, of course, and then feel free to join our community and participate in our virtual walk run.
Wonderful. And that's becauseorganization.org.
Correct.
Main website. And what are you, do you have the tags on social media? Is it Because Organization or the Because Organization, or what are those?
So it's Because Organization or Because Org, depending if you're on Instagram.
So start typing it, everyone. When you get to the org, pause before you put the I and see if it pulls it up.
Exactly.
I like it. It'll probably pull it up before you even get to the ORG, I would think.
You can do the 5K, the 10K, or the 15K. Translated to miles. So I'm doing 7 miles on the stationary bike.
I like that you can do that too. By the way, the stationary bike option, maybe you can always do that in a walkathon, but I never even mentioned it before.
As long as you can use your legs.
Yeah. No, that's great though, because a lot of times if you're not having the knee experiences or something that you used to, then sometimes stationary bike is actually what they'll tell you to use instead, or something that you're moving around, or just, everybody out there, if you're moving your legs, what a message I'm getting, if you're moving your legs, it counts. So if you're just out there kicking ass on a regular basis, you can do that too. So what about the rest of the year? How can people best get involved? Obviously there's volunteering and donating. Are there other things in the online community that people can track or share and stuff?
Right. They can share our social media posts, spread awareness. We have some toolkits coming out, some information. Of course, they can volunteer. I believe there's mostly virtual volunteering they can do from anywhere. Mm-hmm. Our volunteers don't normally work with survivors of human trafficking without the proper trauma-informed training and things like that. So they would do more of the remote stuff. But they can still be involved that way.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, though, too, because a lot of times that also holds back people from volunteering, is thinking, I don't know what to say. And you're like, well, you don't need to know what to say. We don't expect you to unless you're trained and those kind of opportunities. But you can help in those other ways because, once again, we all need spoons and napkins. We all need people to actually make the posts or share the posts or to send things. One other thing that hit me just now that I always like to mention is, mentioning on social media is great. Talking about a thing to people that you know and care about helps spread word, because not only might someone find time and resources to donate, but people out in the community, whether it's, I think it's clergy and then doctors are the first to hear about some of these situations, statistically speaking. And then it's also just neighbors, family, or if if there's people that need the services as well, knowing and having these links in your back pocket here or whatever pocket you keep your phone in, and to forward to people as well and say, you should check this out because there are people in need all around us if we are able to see them. Well,
exactly.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been, as always, it's a joy to talk to you, and I just am so grateful for what you're doing. and grateful for you letting me here to be a little part of it to get this out in whatever ways I'm able to as well. So thank you for being here, sharing with me, and just thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Dwight, for giving us the platform to speak about it.
Thank you for listening to the Courtemp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Courtemp Arts shows, visit courtemparts.com.